We're now coming to the end of the year, and at the end of the year, it's always about personal priorities. You look back what happened during the year, and you will make decisions on what should happen in the next year. You probably set your goal and maybe use New Year's resolutions if you should or should not do that. Will be part of a podcast in the future. However, it's now all about personal priorities. However, especially when you're a leader, every single personal priority sends a message, and you have to see what do you communicate when sending these messages? Because when you look at these days, there might be different interpretations, and especially when you want to organize your business in a way that talents will be attracted in the future, it will be quite crucial and quite important what you communicate in these days. And by the way, we have amazing podcasts this week. Again, we have an excellent leadership podcast with Chelsea Sprong from Beasley, who caught my attention because members, people who work there, publicly spoke about how great their leadership is. And Jesse Lefan on Thursday, that will be published, that they talk about the importance of pronouns. In the German podcast, if you're able to speak German, we have Tina Voss and Julia Wohlfeld, who are both from a leadership position, talking about organizational culture and talent acquisition. But now we're looking at how actually are we going to approach the festive season, because many people take their own approach, and their own approach then will be declared the truth. So I just give you an example. I am single, I don't have a family, I am not religious, so I will use these days to work quite a lot, but that's my personal choice. I would never force anyone else or even tell that this is the only truth. However, many people now say, well, maybe I have family and maybe I want to have days off, and maybe for the next 10 days I don't want to have anything to do with work, which is perfectly fine. And some people even might have a week or two off until the beginning of next year or even longer. But unfortunately, we still have many leaders who say, I do X, and that X, Y, Z, whatever they do, they declare that as the truth. And that is what Professor Frank Kaspides from Harvard Business School called N=1 evidence. And as we all know, and as Frank Kaspides from Harvard Business School says as well, N=1 is not an evidence. Unfortunately, people often claim because it worked for me, it has to work for others as well. So you have people who say, I invested in Facebook, made a lot of money, so it has to work for you. Then you invest in the same, maybe you make less money or no money at all. Just because someone does something, as long as you don't have a significant control group and a proper scientific setup that examines that behavior structurally, you can never claim person X did something and the same will work for you. If you think you can determine how important or not important something is, well, we have to say that the diversity you claim your organization has probably only exists on paper or in your marketing material. I give you an example. We still, especially in Germany, have the case that organizations do not do end-of-year parties. They simply say, it's Germany, it's a Christian country, so we have Christmas, Weihnachten, yeah, which they celebrate in a tank. They don't. So, but still, they say it's this country, so this is what we do, and you all have to follow our rules. At the same time, these organizations wonder why they are so not successful compared to international organizations that have a way more diverse approach. And especially when people claim to have these Christian values, it is quite surprising how during the year these Christian values seem to disappear completely when you see how they conduct their business. So we have to see how to do it better. So step number one of how to do it better is you have to look at what really drives people. What are their personal preferences? What are their personal priorities? Focus on the people you work with, because that drives their inner mission. You find out what their inner mission is, and as soon as you align your organization to their inner mission, they will always be thankful to work for you, and they will happily be more motivated to work with you in the future. Also, you have to see, what do you actually lose and what do you actually win? What do you communicate when you either acknowledge the importance of something or when you say it is not important, maybe on a non-factual basis? And I give you an example for this. Maybe you know the Muppets Christmas Carol. And it's a huge tradition with a circle of friends I have here in London that we watch the Muppets Christmas Carol every year. We go to the Prince Charles Cinema, which many of you will know when you are a Londoner. It's close to Leicester Square, and it's a really nice place to be. So the Muppets Christmas Carol, we have the moment where Mr. Scrooge tells his bookkeeping people goodbye and see you tomorrow, and then Kermit the Frog, who is the leading bookkeeper in that company for the moneylender, says, but Mr. Scrooge, see you tomorrow at 8, really? Tomorrow is Christmas. And then Mr. Scrooge says, well, 8:30 then. So that's brilliantly played by Michael Caine, by the way. That's the one who always said, Christmas? Humbug. So 8:30, of course, is not customary, as Kermit the Frog points out, and then they get a day off. But the only reason they get a day off is because Kermit the Frog points out that there is no one else to do business with, so they cannot make any money. At the same time, they have to use coal to heat the place, so they will make a loss on the day, and that is not a viable option for a business. And that is what Mr. Scrooge agrees on. And then, of course, when you know the story of Mr. Scrooge, he gets visited by the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of the future Christmas, and finds out that no one likes him and he will probably die alone and lonely. And then he changes his whole approach, how to lead his business and how to conduct himself with other people. I hope you don't need any kind of spirits or ghosts visiting you until you change the right way. But you always have to see the orientation we need is always focused on the employees and on science. And especially when you let a diversity-oriented business, which you should do, because science very simply tells you that more diverse businesses create better solutions. As soon as you focus on science, facts, and evidence, you will be a better leader. And especially when you have personal priorities and the symbolism derived from that. If you only look for people who agree on your values, your personal values, and you call that value-driven, it's not value-driven, it's ego-driven. Please don't mix that up. As soon as you only look for people who are like you, your situation of competition on the market will get way worse month by month, because you will be outperformed by many organizations that have more modern, more agile, and especially more diverse ideas of how to conduct your business. And especially now, and I'm using this moment right now deliberately, as we come to the end of the year, I have to make a couple of announcements and a couple of statements. When you are now approaching Christmas and you hear Niels Brabandt for now a year and a half talking about science, proof, and evidence in leadership, when you're listening to this episode right now, I am just from today tested negative on COVID after recovering from COVID. I am, of course, double vaccinated and boosted, and due to that, I went through my whole COVID infection and, of course, sticked to the whole quarantine principle, which is applied. So I separated myself and isolated myself completely from anyone for the full amount of days until I tested negative again with PCR test and everything that belongs to it. I made it through COVID without a single symptom, which not only proves that the vaccine works brilliantly well, so get it. Second, the systems we have, the advice is exactly correct, so please stick to it. All the resources we have, please use them, test daily. I would not have found out that I have COVID if I would not test daily. And I tested daily since I'm fully vaccinated, and that is since July of this year. It is very important that we take care of our communities and that we take care of the people around us. And just because you don't feel anything doesn't mean you don't have it. So be sure that you test regularly. And of course, when I'm leading this podcast, I'm also listening to your feedback. And I always pointed out that I really appreciated how great the discussions were, and many great discussions we had here. But I now have to address the people, that probably 20% of the people who frequently yell into my inbox about how COVID doesn't exist and that it's all just media controlled propaganda and that there is no virus and they don't need a vaccine. I need to address these people. So listen. And this is also important for you as a leader. When you think that COVID doesn't exist, you simply deny a factual situation. As soon as you claim that COVID isn't there, you can present your studies and especially your scientific qualification, which to make these claims must be, let's say, at least a PhD, an international career in, of course, many publications in epidemiology and virology in very well-known journals, and not just a Facebook post or a YouTube video from a random person from somewhere that just aligns with your personal view of taking yourself way too important and taking your ignorance to the next level. Any leader that is listening to this podcast, when you have people amongst your staff who deny the vaccine, especially when leaders do so, you will have massive problems in the future with their credibility. Because when you have a business that is led by science, facts, and evidence, but your leaders don't follow science, facts, and evidence, it is completely acceptable that people say, I'm not following them, because why should they? It is very important that these people have to be pointed at, because these people are an anti-social burden to society and they must be dealt with accordingly. When you now suffer, for example, from a loss of income due to the national insurance hike you have in the UK due to the COVID situation, or maybe in the US where you suddenly face medical bills which are significantly higher than they were before, or that your premiums of your healthcare went up due to the COVID situations. The problems are the people who are deliberately and without any necessary situation in their life. These people are deliberately unvaccinated. The unvaccinated people are the issue. And we will only get out of this situation if people get the vaccine, follow science, facts, and evidence, and also follow the rules we have and the testing capacities we have. That is the way how we get out of this pandemic. There can be no acceptance for any leaders on any level or any positions, anywhere in any organization that deliberately ignores the situation we're in. So please act accordingly, and when you promote or demote people, always take into consideration that certain people who live a bit in their own world and take themselves way too important with their personal ignorance, of course, are completely unsuitable to serve as a leader in any organization. And of course, when we now look into the future of this podcast, we have certain changes as well. And I asked many of you, what are you looking for? What are your focuses? And of course, I'm very proud of the interaction we have, and also very thankful. We now have nearly 40,000 listeners without any paid advertising for this podcast, which is a tremendous success. Thank you very much for that. We had countless rankings this year in the top 200, top 150, top 100, even top 50 in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, even in Hong Kong and Russia, the UK, the US, all over the place, with very challenging categories like business and management on very challenging platforms and very competitive platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcast. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I'm very happy that the content is much appreciated. There will be a change in the future, because I heard you and many people said they want more content and a bit less interviews. It doesn't mean that the interviews will disappear, but we take a break on them for a while. Next week will be the last 2 interviews for a while, and I will take more time on research to have my voice heard as you want it. It is your wish. So there will be less interviews and more of me. And of course, I can only highly recommend to listen to the interviews, the German ones with Tina Voss, Julia Wohlfeld, organizational culture and talent acquisition. And on the English podcast yesterday, Chelsea Sprong from Beasley, large insurance company, but excellent leadership. And on Thursday, we will publish another interview with Jessie Lafan about the use of pronouns, which is very important in the diverse circumstances your organization is always working in. Of course, if you want more than this podcast, go to expert.nb-networks.com, and every Wednesday you get an update via email, 100% content, ad-free, guarantee with everything we offer. And of course, if you need any help in respect to training, speaking, coaching, consulting, if you need a mentor or project or interim management, you need someone, just drop me an email. Also, if you just want to discuss, have a chat with me, have a discussion with me, want to have a different point of view, maybe you don't agree with me, please tell me. And I'm happy to discuss with you based on facts and evidence. Just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, nb@nb-networks.com, and we take it from there. And now the most important part, of course, is that you apply what you heard in this podcast, because only what you apply brings the necessary change into your organization. So my final words for now, I wish you a great festive season. Merry Christmas. I wish you a great end of the year, whatever you want to do with the time you now have at hand and the time the organization will give you. As a leader, please reflect on what you've done in the last year and what you want to do in the future, because this is the only way how we learn. When we look back, and then we have our lessons learned and we learn from our mistakes and what we've done well. I wish you all the best for the now upcoming time. Contact me anytime, and I'm looking forward to being in touch with you in the future, because this podcast has a lot more to offer and there's a lot more to come. I wish you all the best now, applying everything you learned here and you heard here in your organization. Always happy to help, but for right now, there's only one thing for me left to say. Merry Christmas and thank you very much for your time.